Hello again, everybody, and welcome inside the Howitzer and Buzzsaw Show. I am George, the Howitzer Gerbo.
And I am Mike, the Buzzsaw Ostie.
Sports Talk back with you here as April winds down, but football season starts. It's very slow wind up into the summer with the NFL draft, which will be our topic of discussion on this HBS. Less asininity than Mike has had to deal with in the past, generally speaking, which is good for him. So,
in terms of my professional coverage, yes, less drama this spring than any of the last several years, but still asininity, depending on who you ask, as far as the NFL draft goes so far. But the weather's cooperating. Spring is in the air. Summer's on the horizon. It's postseason action in the NHL, NBA. Major League Baseball is in full swing. We'll get to all those on other shows, but life is good. Can't complain. Got a pineapple T-shirt on for anyone watching the video, representing pineapples. Kind of calms me down, but I'm sure I will get into a rant or two as we continue on with the program here. I've already put that out on social media with my thoughts on the draft, but I'm ready to go.
He's always representing pineapples.
Yeah.
Green Bay, host of this year's draft. A lot of people in a small place.
205,000, according to Adam Schefter on the official.
More than doubling the population of Green Bay, the town of Green Bay specifically there. Brown County, there's more people and whatnot. But
I imagine people not from Green Bay were at the draft. And it's not just the town of Green Bay, I'd imagine.
Yes, and I would,
people travel to go.
Yeah, and as I looked across the crowd, predominantly, obviously, Packer fans, but maybe even more so than some other places. I think, cities that
I bet you the North Division traveled, though. I bet you Bears fans, Vikings
you saw Bears, Vikings. It's having been to Green Bay and obviously
Detroit.
as a Packers fan, it's not the easiest place to get to. There are flights in, small airport that has flights into it, but a lot of people flying to Milwaukee or drive north. A lot of people flying to Chicago and drive north. So it's not like Detroit last year, Pittsburgh next year, which will be fun to see how they turn the area around the rivers into a draft thing. And so it's not a city that's got a major international airport and everything like that. But all things considered, Packers pulled it off well.
I think all things considered, because there was a lot of criticism that obviously the Packers, historic franchise, Green Bay, historic market. However, there were people saying you can't go there just because they're an historic market. It doesn't fit. Unlike Detroit, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, where they've been recently, Cleveland even. These are bigger markets. They're all top 30. That's not the case for Green Bay. You could argue Milwaukee certainly is, but that's not Green Bay. They were in Green Bay. But I think they pulled it off, got enough people there, the atmosphere, the scenery, it all looked like it fit. It worked. The crowd was into it. The crowd even was able to kind of calm down their cheering and booing at the appropriate times, whether or not they were talking about Walter Payton or an NFL legend dying. Then the crowd got the
that was my favorite part. Yeah,
they went. It was like a roller coaster. They were cheering and ready to boo Goodell. Then they calmed down.
Okay, we're going to honor Steve McMichael, who recently died, and
then they were about to get into it again, and then they were like, "Well, Walter Payton," and they're like, "All right, we'll get Walter Payton."
And it's like, and now with their selection, it's like,
we're gonna boo again.
Good job.
So that was fun. I think Pittsburgh, with the scenery, with it being easier to get to, with having a major airport, with a lot of fans on the East Coast that certainly can get there easier than people trying to travel to Green Bay in the Midwest. It's going to be what Philadelphia, Cleveland, it's going to be more traditional to what the NFL draft has been since they've been traveling. But Green Bay, they pulled it off.
Yeah, that's kind of my one knock / disappointment. But I'm like, what can you do is, we talked about Detroit and Philadelphia, Pittsburgh will be great with the rivers and just
the rivers.
Green Bay is, the little downtown of Green Bay is very quaint. Remind you of some places, smaller places in West Virginia or Western PA. But the stadium is the town or is the vista you want, and the stadium isn't it's just a tent in the parking lot there. So it kind of Yeah,
I
we're
wonder how
naive.
hotel and all that worked. I mean, I didn't travel, so that this will be easier in Pittsburgh than it would
Yeah,
have been
there's a
there.
bunch of people staying in Appleton, which is
Yeah.
30 minutes south. A lot of the visiting teams, when they come and stay, there's some bigger hotels and stuff in Appleton. Visiting NFL teams usually stay in Appleton and head in. But yeah, I feel like you could have used, because the stadium's open for fans to go in there and sit. But other than that, it's just kind of like just sitting there in the background, in the background. So that kind of stinks that they couldn't have utilized actual Lambeau Field, like have the players
Yeah.
room
Okay.
somehow be coming out of Lambeau Field. I think would be kind of cool.
Maybe.
But no, they didn't. So it is what it is. But shout out to the city. A big boom for them, and the biggest type of event they can get. There's no Super Bowl going to be in Green Bay or anything.
Yeah,
like
WrestleMania is not going to go to Green Bay.
WrestleMania, yeah.
Like if they want to go to that area, they would go to Milwaukee.
Yeah.
They're not going to go to Green Bay. The only reason why the NFL went to Green Bay and not Milwaukee is because that's where the NFL franchise is, because that's the special nature of it, even though they kind of connect to Milwaukee. But they pulled it off, and this probably is it. I imagine it's going to be another journey before they go back there, because they are going to try to get to bigger cities and make this bigger and better, and allow more studio shows, easier for fans to travel, all of that. But all things considered, they got one, and I do think they pulled it off. And they pulled it off with a weird connection that was talked about throughout the draft broadcast, certainly ESPN, ABC, wherever, NFL Network, wherever you were watching at home, that the last time we really experienced a quarterback slide like we experienced in the first round with Shedeur Sanders falling out of the first round was Aaron Rodgers, that eventually landed with Green Bay. And of course, Aaron Rodgers managed to get himself in the news and talked about all through the broadcast, even when he has still not made his decision on if to continue to play and if to continue to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers, despite some reports that they may or may not have had his answer before their pick and deciding to pass on Shedeur.
Mm-hmm. A quarterback light round and a quarterback light draft overall. We had one of those a couple years ago, and you see Cam Ward
after so many last year go early.
After so many last year, you see Cam Ward goes at the top to Tennessee. Travis Hunter second to in a trade to Jacksonville. Yeah. And then later on down the line, Jackson Dart, the Giants get back in the draft. So the Giants arguably you could say, well, we'll talk about grades and stuff like that or whatever later. But Abdul Carter, who for my money was
they did what they had to do. Say what you want about the Giants. They had two goals they had to accomplish, and they got a quarterback and they got a defensive stud.
Penn State great Abdul Carter wearing the 11. Mike, as he wrote last night, the most bust proof pick in the draft. Like dude was a menace at Penn State, and
I think so. Yeah.
And
there's already played two positions. He literally has success at linebacker and DN. You can move him around, and the numbers are there all the way through. He has the size. He played college built like he was ready for the NFL all the way through already.
And the Giants get back in, and they just trade a couple of lower round picks, a third and a fifth, to jump back in to the first round to come and get Jackson Dart. So we'll see how the Giants now have 4 quarterbacks on that roster.
Well, that's true.
That include Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston. Don't forget about Tommy DeVito and
Tommy DeVito. I think that story's over. I think it's like Linsanity. It's going to be a documentary in the future, like Linsanity was. I think Tommy DeVito, the Cutlets champion and Mr. New Jersey. I think that has dissipated. I think that's over. That was a great run. We got to get a film someday, maybe a 30 for 30 short if you don't want to do a full thing.
Something.
But I think that's done, because if you put him in any other market, it's not going to give you the same feel. Like unless he's on the Jets, he got to be in that Meadowlands, New York, New Jersey market. But I think that's over.
And now Jackson Dart. So we'll kind of do vis-a-vis here. Cam Shedeur thing. Good for Cam Ward. Built his way up. Good year at Miami. Miami lost some weird games in there. Miami should have been in the playoff, but for him at least, shout out to the haters that said he should have played in the second half of the Pop-Tarts Bowl because it was going to hurt his draft stock. And not sure how.
Well, that's just stupid. I mean, that even if he wasn't,
nowhere else to go but one.
Well, but I mean, George, even if he wasn't the first overall pick, it's not because of the half of the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
The Pop-Tarts Bowl. Yeah, no, that didn't matter.
So excited to see what he does down there. There's a new regime, new coach, and everything in Tennessee. So we'll see how that goes. Will Levis wasn't the guy in Tennessee. Tennessee's kind of been looking for.
Do you believe they ever were waffling? Because they announced a week ago they finally decided that they were going to take Cam Ward. We didn't really have debate on the first overall pick. Everyone kind of knew he was going to likely be him to Tennessee, but there were some media members nationally that were trying to say, oh, if they don't, then this will happen. And Tennessee eventually just dispelled that. We went in the draft, they took him.
Yeah,
But
I
I
mean,
could argue that felt like a smokescreen the whole time, and they were always going to take him.
yeah, like it's we're picking for a need there. Travis Hunter doesn't, whether it's at cornerback or wide receiver or both, like it doesn't feel a need there. Like they need.
Right.
The most recent success that team has had was under Ryan Tannehill, who of course Miami drafted first, and then
And
Tannehill
he was the clear top QB in the
yeah, and Tannehill leads them, with an offense and a system under then coach Mike Vrabel that managed to make it work defensively. Derrick Henry, of course, before he left, and they strung it together and they got to an AFC title game. They need to. It's just you got to restart it and structure it as you would build a franchise traditionally, and that includes getting the quarterback position right. And so I think this is going to work for them. The Shedeur stuff, Mike, is like you can speak to it better because you watched a bunch of his games covering the Big 12. Or at least aware of his performances.
Yeah,
like,
they didn't play. West Virginia didn't play Colorado.
West Virginia didn't play him, but just
season.
Yeah, covering the league and understand. It's like, okay, like I've seen the highlights and stuff. Like, aside from the hype of what Colorado had going on, an Alamo team that made the Alamo Bowl. Okay, with Travis Hunter, we knew what he was, standout, generational looking guy at whatever he does. But just like there's nothing about Shedeur again, no football expertise, analysis, whatever, scouting guy here talking to you. There's nothing about Shedeur Sanders that screams first round pick to me. And I think we got sucked into a narrative of ESPN and everybody else hyping him up. Oh man, Deion's son, this and that. They retired his number, whatever.
Well, that's a whole different debate.
That's a whole different.
That's ludicrous because they retired his number and not Cordell Stewart, who arguably is maybe the greatest quarterback in the last 30 years at Colorado. Certainly, there are other players they can put up.
Whole different can of worms, and we go through all this, and it's like, oh, what? And everybody, Shedeur fell out of the first round. And I'm like, I get some of these people had, first round.
Mel Kiper lost his mind. I thought he was.
Yeah, Mel Kiper,
I thought he was going to quit and fight somebody. It almost came across, and people were trying to allude to this, like he was getting money from the Sanders camp. He was livid.
He was of the people, he was banging the drum the biggest, but there's people that didn't have a first round grade on him.
Oh, 100%. I just haven't seen Mel Kiper that angry about a draft.
Oh yeah. In years. Yeah. So I think a lot of it is, drum up the attention and notoriety to then, also get the same reaction, disappointment, attention from that. But no, and again, it goes back to needs, Mike. So yeah, okay, we looked at the Steelers, like, okay, he's there for the Steelers. The Steelers,
they were the team that once he fell out of the top 10, they were the team.
Yeah, because after we get past 5, like Cleveland, Cleveland's not going to take him. Vegas isn't going to take him. It's again, I get, there's talent, but filling a need. And if it's not, like you say, if it's not in that top spot, like kind of like an Aaron Rodgers deal way back when Green Bay took him, like, well, when the dude is this good and he's at 24, but Aaron Rodgers at that time was, a better prospect than Shedeur, had more experience in a pro set style than Shedeur Sanders has. So I think there's a lot. I'll give Shedeur this, like the athlete. I think there's still some untapped potential in terms of the athleticism, what he can do. Like he wasn't for lack of a better example, he wasn't a Pat White type of quarterback where we could have seen more of let's use an current NFL.
Well, he wasn't like, even people bringing up to me already on debates on social media, he wasn't like a Lamar Jackson or a Daniels. People get confused.
Kyler Murray.
People get confused because they see, and you don't want to make this a race thing, but they see an African-American successful quarterback and they assume it has to be an athletic quarterback. His prototype, Shedeur Sanders' prototype, is not a comp, even at the highest peak, to Lamar Jackson, to Daniels, to Mike Vick way back. None of that. He's not an athletic runner. That's actually why the Giants took Jackson Dart, the white guy out of Ole Miss, instead of him. That was even the analysis to Mel Kiper, to be fair to him, despite being upset. He actually brought that up. Jackson Dart had 1,500 yards in college on the ground. Yes, he played in an offense with Lane Kiffin that could air it out, but he had more of an ability to run around and scramble and get yards on the ground than Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders is not a runner. He is not a spread offense guy. He is not somebody that's going to over-athletic you. He is a pocket passer, and it actually goes with who taught him the game. Obviously his dad, but Tom Brady. It's been publicized. Tom Brady was mentoring him for years. Tom Brady is a pocket passer who then became the greatest of all time. He is more built in the Tom Brady mold. That's why, actually, George, some NFL analysts were comparing Shedeur Sanders to Kirk Cousins as even a ceiling grade. And as people make fun of Kirk Cousins now, he's had a solid career. He's been a Pro Bowler. His teams have won. Like, he's put up some numbers. He's not a Hall of Famer, though. But if that's where they think the ceiling is, it doesn't mean you couldn't take him. But that's different than people already bringing up. Well, the Steelers already passed on Lamar once towards the end of Ben. Then they draft Kenny, who was also a mobile guy. That was a reach, and obviously that didn't work out. And then how could you do it again with Shedeur Sanders? You got to take somebody eventually. Shedeur's comp is not even similar to Kenny Pickett, who was a scrambler, who was mobile. Certainly not Lamar. Shedeur is just different than all of those guys. So that, I think, is where some casual fans really get confused, thinking, oh, this is an athletic QB that you're missing on. Not the case. I also will say for his teammate, before getting fully more into Shedeur, obviously Travis Hunter is a beast. I'd love to see him do the two-way thing, or at least try in the NFL. It makes sense for Jacksonville to try to bring an athlete in, try to make something special there, try to get best available, try to get fans excited there. I get all of that. But it wasn't off a draft pick without a trade. They had to work a trade to get there. There's a chance Cleveland's going to fully regret not taking the best available player when they had a chance, and their fans are upset they don't have Travis Hunter. Whether you like Shedeur or not for the Browns and want to get him later, etc., that's a different story than maybe they should have just gotten the Travis Hunter business, because they need an athlete. They need a star. If Myles Garrett is still going to be there, that's a defensive star, but they need a gem on offense, and most believe he'll play more as a receiver. Yes, you still have quarterback questions since now you admit you're done with Deshaun Watson, but that feels like an easy pick. It really feels like the first three picks should have been pretty easy, and yet it didn't happen. So his success is going to fully be tied to Cleveland now. If he ends up as a perennial Pro Bowler, whether it be a receiver only or even two sides of the ball, and does the Dion thing in the NFL, Cleveland's always going to wear that unless they start winning, which isn't something anyone's really going to predict right away. So we will see. But that's a little confusing why they would just say, no, best available, we're going to punt you. And then they just tinker and go a few picks back and then do something else. That felt like if you're not going to go quarterback, then you go Travis Hunter in that spot. But back on Shedeur, yes, he doesn't feel like a first-round quarterback to me. The conversation obviously is because who his daddy is, and that is when I like Dion as a player. He's one of my favorite players growing up.
Same.
Obviously covered him being a member of Big 12 media now, and we'll cover him this coming season. Looking forward to being able to talk to him directly. I do think some of the decisions he makes are a little bit odd. I do think retiring his son's jersey is not even odd. I think it's actually embarrassing for the program to do it before even getting to the NFL. You have legends of a program. I mean, this program, people think it's just been crap for 30 years, and it was for 30 years before Dion. He did resurrect it. He is a good coach. You give him credit for an Alamo Bowl appearance 2 years in after they were 1-11 when he took over. But you put Shedeur's name up there. I could get Travis Hunter as the second Heisman Trophy winner ever. If you want to give flowers now, okay, you don't know what's going to happen in the future. Put the number up, even if they don't have NFL success. Travis Hunter deserves it, not your son. Your son went 13-12. Yes, he had some numbers, but it wasn't like it was perfect. Mel Kiper kept banging the drum on all these game-winning comebacks he had. I'm not sure what he was watching. They won some games from behind, but they also blew some games.
BYU is
I mean, I'm not saying there was zero, but he was acting like it was Tom Brady out there. Every time he'd be down in the fourth quarter, he's immediately going to come back.
As I'm thinking about it, I think it was that BYU game was the one that was like.
They also had some losses in the fourth quarter.
Yes.
They also blew some games. And yes, when they get blown out and the other team scores a bunch, that's not his fault. He doesn't play defense. But my point is, Shedeur Sanders did not have a college career that even has, even again, going to the Daniels and Lamar comparisons for the Steelers directly recently. It doesn't connect. They accomplished way more in college than Shedeur Sanders has. He could have a great career. I'm rooting for the kid. And I like Deion Sanders as a player. We'll see about, the rest of his coaching career. But, and I don't think it's fair that there are some people rooting against Shedeur because they don't like Deion Sanders. That's not fair. There are some people legitimately happy that this happened to Shedeur. And I also will add, George, because Shedeur's had some personality questions. Certainly got cocky at times when maybe he shouldn't, etc. The whole, showing the watch to the student body, a game he'd eventually lose. But to his credit, if you see in the interviews after falling, he's handling it very well. He's handling it very maturely. He's
And
even the one over his father telling his camp, hey, calm down, God will take me in the right place, paraphrasing. He's handling it well. So you give him credit for that as a young man. I don't think he's a first round pick. And to get, an analyst hat on here, I think the issue with Shedeur just on the field, is a question on if the arm strength is there, if the deep ball is there. A lot of his numbers, and I know he had the highest completion percentage in the Power Four, which is what Mel Kiper and a lot of people bang the drum on, the highest completion percentage. And I'm not saying completion percentage is a zero-sum factor. You can definitely look at it. I've used it against players when it's really low. It's not a zero-sum factor, but you can't live and die on it. He would have a completion percentage that was 70 plus all the time, but he would throw little Tom Brady-like dink and dunks, and then the receiver would take it and go wild, whether it be Travis Hunter or whoever. That's not fully on Shedeur. I do think that overrated him a little bit. And if you don't have the big play potential and don't really pop there, if the accomplishments aren't there, if you're not an uber athlete and you're just a pocket passer, we've seen even the greatest pocket passers of all time, George, fall in the draft. Tom Brady again went all the way to the 6th round, his mentor. So the NFL doesn't really love pocket passers in the early rounds. That's no different than teams passing on Shedeur. And if you're the Steelers, and I wrote about this too, I get you desperately need a franchise QB. George, you can make an argument that in terms of pressure and win now need, that the Steelers needed a franchise quarterback than any other team in the league, because a lot of the other teams that need one just are bad all the time. They need to start winning playoff games. I get, and the draft's there next year. I get all that. However, you don't want to swing and miss again. They did pass on Lamar when they were still trying to win now for Big Ben towards the end. Maybe that was a mistake in retrospect. They drafted Kenny Pickett. That clearly didn't work. That clearly was a mistake. If you take a first-round quarterback and it does not work, again, you're really screwing yourself when you need so much else as well. Their pass rush is not what the national media will tell you. They always brag about the Steelers pass rush, steel curtain pass rush. This isn't the 70s. This isn't even the 90s or the mid 2000s. That pass rush has been average, not bad, but average in recent years. Their total defense was 12th, not 5, not 6, not 2, not top 10 even, like the national media will tell you. TJ Watt had 11.5 sacks last year. Yes, he's had the 19, the 21.5, the 20, 22 when he tied 22.5 when he tied the record. I mean, he's getting older. He's missing more games. Are you figuring the sacks are going to go up or down? Cam Hayward's getting older. How much more is he going to play? Minka's production has already dipped. Highsmith is also getting older. He also started missing games. They need a younger pass rusher to get more sacks. They had 40 sacks as a team, and there were teams, playoff teams, with 45, 50, 55, over 60. They're in the middle of the pack there. They need more of that, and they got it with Derek Harmon, who's one of the best pass rushers in the country, who did it in the Big Ten, who did it at Michigan State, and then really got it done for Oregon, that had an undefeated season in the regular season before losing Ohio State in the playoff. So I think as long as Harmon's healthy, and there's questions there, which is why he dropped, they got a really solid player as well, and they filled a need. And I just don't think they love Shedeur Sanders enough. They just didn't love him enough. If they loved him enough, George, knowing Mike Tomlin like I do, they would have said, we don't care who your father is. We don't care about drama. We're going to take you if you think you're the franchise guy now. They only have Mason Rudolph right now to start a game for them. They don't have that guy as they're waiting on Aaron Rodgers. But even if Aaron Rodgers says he's coming, that's not for the future. They would have taken Shedeur Sanders. They didn't love him enough, and there's reasons why.
And you get to this point where not only filling the need, but the other factor, if you want to weigh it as a franchise, best guy on our board type of deal. And, I think about Philadelphia.
I don't even think they thought Harmon would still be there. There were some that didn't think he'd still be there.
So you've got, hey, we're filling a need, and we've got such a good grade on this guy, and we didn't think he'd be here. Right. Down at the bottom of the first round, Philadelphia swaps spots with Kansas City. And
Philadelphia is a beast in the draft. Like, this is why they're building a dynasty. This is incredible. The Kansas City Chiefs and Philadelphia Eagles, with those late round picks, they get it done every year.
Jihad Campbell, the linebacker from Alabama, okay, he falls because he's got,
You're lucky too,
injury or whatever, and of course he's sitting right there for the defending Super Bowl champions to remind you of when they took Jalen Carter, who had issues with the car crash and charges and everything when he was a student at Georgia, and it's like, hey, get him to the league. He was going to be a top 5, top 3-ish type of pick, and he falls kind of in the teens, and now he's the centerpiece of a line for the Super Bowl champions. So that for the Steelers quarterback is a need. They still.
No, it's definitely a need. I just don't think that guy's in the draft unless they win Jackson Dart, who I'm not even sure I'm sold on either.
And you want to, if I'm going to just go, I get future of your organization, but if I'm just going to go this coming season, like,
oh sure, next season,
Shedeur, Rudolph.
How many win different? Like, for example, if you had Mason Rudolph or Shedeur Sanders in just 2025, knowing that Rudolph's more experienced and Shedeur would then be a rookie, even if you love Shedeur more, it's a difference of 1 win, probably.
Yeah, maybe
it's not like you're going to go on an AFC title run. Now, I know that the Steelers are in a situation, George, that if they do win a playoff game and then lose that second playoff game, that would be a gigantic jump up and monkey off the back and a big thing for the fans. So they don't have to necessarily win a title. They just need a playoff win at minimum. However, even obviously Watt and Cam Hayward want to go further. But however, I don't know if the difference of drafting Shedeur Sanders, at least for next year, does that versus Mason Rudolph. And let's be fair, George, the honest part of it too is if they bring in Aaron Rodgers, who is going to be an upgrade over everybody just for 1 year. He did turn it on a little bit at the end of the year last year with the Jets. His numbers were still better than any Jets quarterback in a while, even though he's older now and a shell of his former MVP self. It's not like Aaron Rodgers is likely to win you a championship anymore. He's likely to be a difference of 1 or 2 wins as well. In all reality, and Steelers fans do not want to hear this, the Steelers are really not a championship contender next season, no matter who is under center. They do need a lot. And again, with those defensive stars aging out and missing games, when TJ Watt miss games, they have no pass rush. They can't have that. You need somebody that can generate a pass rush. And I will make myself clear again. If there was a quarterback in this draft that they loved or that I loved, I would say go quarterback all day. I'm a little different than you. I get next year, but if there was a quarterback they love, this would be the time to get that future guy. You're not going to win it next year anyway. You got to get the face of your franchise and stop messing around post Ben. I get all of that, but I don't think that guy was in this draft. And yeah, they can take one later in the draft, but I don't think Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart would be that guy. I know the Giants took Dart. I don't know if I fully buy into him, but if I had to pick, I could understand Dart more than Shedeur. And Jackson Dart wasn't really connected to them. It was really about Shedeur Sanders, and he had the meeting in Pittsburgh and all of that. And whether you believe the reports that he had a poor interview and was kind of cocky, there are some that debunk that. Either way, just on the field, I don't think he'd be that franchise guy, and I do get passing on him.
I want to go back to something you alluded to there at number 2 and address it from both perspectives with Travis Hunter, and we'll start in the same division as the Steelers with the Browns.
Yeah.
And I texted a friend of mine that's a Browns fan, and it's like, oh man, they're going to trade out of it. And he's like, oh, it's a good move. We need other, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. We're building, the whole Deshaun Watson thing. Quarterback Joe Flacco is currently essentially the welcome back quarterback again.
Joe Flacco, about a 1-year thing. Right?
Joe Flacco, forever quarterback of the AFC East and occasionally the AFC South. And Jacksonville comes in. And so the Browns trade back and they get a first rounder next year. So if I'm on a paper basis, take the names out of it, and it's first round pick swap. Browns get 2 later, second and a 5th this year, I believe, and Jacksonville's first next year. But it assumes that
a unicorn in the draft.
It assumes that we're going to trust that the Browns with 2 first-round picks next year will know how to execute those. And generally speaking, it's not the case. And we're looking at, do I want – if I told the Browns that in since 25, I told the Browns in 2027, you've got your quarterback who's going to be there 10 years. name unknown, whoever that's going to be. But I give you the hypothetical that
Okay.
you've got to. Yeah,
Okay.
I know it's hard. It's hard to
What a
believe because it
wacky
hadn't happened in a long
hypothetical,
time.
dude. Right,
I give
yeah.
you the next Bernie Kosar, Cleveland,
Yeah,
and he's
yeah.
going to be there for 13 years.
Or what
And
Baker Mayfield could have been. What Baker Mayfield had
yes,
become and what could have been.
you and me
Right.
both agree on that. I give you that. And guess what? You lock back up Myles Garrett, and he's got a few good years left in him in his prime. And also Travis Hunter's in year 3 of a career that might not go to the Hall of Fame, but he's going to be like 1,000-yard, 900, whatever.
And at that point, you can draft a running back or another receiver. Like those are pieces you always can take.
Like if you're a team that's already in this weird rebuilding quasi whatever limbo, but also thinks you can contend weirdly and win some games, because they'll win with Joe Flacco. They'll win like 7 games.
Well, they're probably looking around and like the Steelers still don't have a quarterback. Burrow's hurt all the time. Lamar's great, but he could get
exactly.
hurt.
So they're looking around, and it's
favorite, but they might think they can catch
with the bigger playoff field. Like, hey, we can backdoor ourselves into a wild card if we string some things together here and there, and beat the Bengals once or twice. I don't know why whatever 2026 brings isn't going to be the savior that, like, I don't know why you because of Travis Hunter. It's not, oh, it's a number and we can get a defensive tackle and whatever. And they eventually take Mason Graham. Mason Graham's great, Michigan guy, stud guy, all Big Ten, etc. But if I don't know why you pass on Hunter there when your next season in 2026, whether you have 1 first-round pick or 2 first-round picks, is probably going to look the same as this year, right, Mike?
Well, it's the same thing with the Steelers, because now they passed on Shedeur and they may take a quarterback later, but in all likelihood, even if they have a year of Rodgers, next year they're going to be drafting a quarterback again. They're going to be in the quarterback rumors for the first round and probably in a similar draft slot, because they always crawl in and then lose right away. They're going to be 21, 22, 23, and they're looking for a quarterback. And the Browns are likely going to be in that late 20 spot looking for a quarterback, like they perpetually are. That's just going to be the case. In all reality and all maturity, that'll be the case for you. And the Browns need a lot, so do the Steelers, but the Browns usually need even more, and there's less of a reason for confidence in their regime for sure. And regardless of Myles Garrett figuring health, he'll still be getting it done a year from now. There was a unicorn in the draft.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was just the best available off a need in general. Then I could maybe see adding a couple draft picks later, which I guess is the argument of some Browns fans being okay with it. But Travis Hunter is a unicorn. I mean, number one, at the very least, and this is what Jacksonville's thinking, and even he said about going down there, at the very least, there will be intrigue and reason to watch a Jaguars game. And if you're not a Browns fan, if you had Travis Hunter, there would be reason why I would watch a Browns game outside of playing the Steelers. Most people maybe would not, figuring the Browns are out of it halfway through the season if they're not Browns fans. You would add intrigue. There might even be this isn't the NBA where you need to kind of do a professional recruiting type of thing. But George, if you draft Travis Hunter and you have a star who's a free agent next year saying, okay, where do I go? I'm deciding between, a bunch of teams here. Maybe I'll actually think about Cleveland, or certainly now Jacksonville. I wouldn't normally want to go down to Jacksonville. I wouldn't normally want to play in Cleveland, but I'm going to hitch my wagon to Travis Hunter and see what goes down here. And again, even if Travis Hunter does not work as a two-way star, because that's been incredibly rare, certainly not to the level he did it in college. Even if that does not work, you try it for a while, and if it hurts him, you can go to full receiver and he'll be a Pro Bowler probably. He is an athletic beast. His numbers as a receiver were way better than even as a corner. He won the Heisman for doing both, but the receiver's his bread and butter. And it also can help a quarterback that you can have there, and maybe can give Joe Flacco one more year in the sun, which is also unlikely he does what he did a couple years ago again, but maybe it would work. It can help a guy who eventually you would draft. Again, like the Steelers, if there was a quarterback you were in love with besides Cam Ward that fit you and would work and was an elite first-round trading in the world to get that guy. But to do all the trading in the world and basically move out of a chance to draft Travis Hunter when he's a unicorn seems like you're doing too much unnecessarily. It's like you're getting in your own way. The Titans were like, okay, we'd love to have fun and tinker, but no, this is our guy. We're going to take him. Same thing that happened with the Giants, who then would later do a trade, but they just took Abdul Carter. Sometimes, George, the teams that have perpetual problems drafting, cough, cough, like Cleveland, no matter what regime, they always have problems drafting. They try to do too much and they get in their own way.
Yeah.
They overthink the damn thing. If a unicorn is there and you're sitting there, go ahead. He's right in your lap. And again, they're now tied to this man, and he may prefer to be in Florida. Like he said, he thinks he has a Florida vibe. I'm sure he does versus a Cleveland one, but it's not like he would have turned him down. If they would have taken him, he would have been forced to go there. There were no reports that he was refusing to go there.
And I like what you said about the picks. If we presume the Browns get to like somewhere, maybe let's say 7 or 8 wins, that puts them in the teens with a pick, and Jacksonville, that division's wide. Houston's good. Obviously, we know what CJ Stroud can do, but otherwise, the division's wide open. Indianapolis
still puts them in the 20s. I mean, the Steelers were 21, and that's
exactly. No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, Indianapolis is kind of directionless. And so same thing with the Titans. So if you presume Jacksonville has a double-digit win, a 9 or a 10 win season, that means they're like a 21 or a 22. So you got 2 picks next year. Both of them are low. It's not like
I'm not even saying I think Jackson was going to jump up to that many wins. I just think this is a unicorn pick that you got to take at that point.
Yeah, but I'm saying for what Cleveland. So okay, great, Cleveland. You got 2 picks in next year's draft instead of Travis Hunter, and your picks are going to be in the bottom half of the field of 32 there. And and kind of from the Jacksonville.
You also don't know about the quarterback class next year. As much as I'm saying, as much as I'm saying that I didn't like this QB class, and I get the Steelers waiting. I mean. I think it needs years ago that were thinking they were going to do this, and then JT Daniels would be there then a year later, and of course he kept playing college and then got hurt. You just don't know what's going to happen with some of these quarterbacks in the future. We've seen that not work as well. So
a friend of mine. By the same friend, one of them joked about, they're stockpiling the draft picks to include in a trade with Deshaun Watson to send him elsewhere. Cleveland's roster construction, especially Myles Garrett, we focus on, but they've got good players on that roster, and Kevin Stefanski is a good coach. I don't think it's find our next quarterback. Jaden Daniels,
they're not a quarterback away.
But I think I think it needs to be through a trade. I think it needs to be. I don't necessarily think you're going to find the Browns getting a quarterback, which appears, if they draft, would be 26 at the earliest. And then that takes 2 to 3 years, and we're looking at 2030.
The only way, George, I mean, here's the problem. And this, I guess, kind of was the Steelers' problem as well, which is why they passed on Shedeur. If you had a quarterback heavy draft like last year and you needed a quarterback and you wanted to draft a quarterback, the Browns had a very early pick this year. If this was a deep quarterback class like last year,
you give up this.
Well, not only you could either give it up and do what you're saying, or you could have let the Titans draft Cam Ward and then just taken the next quarterback who you're assuming at that point, if this is like last year, was a better prospect than Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart. If we go to last year, George, I believe there were 6 quarterbacks taken in the top 12.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying there is, if you don't have the first overall pick, but you have a top 5 overall pick, you could take the second best quarterback and feel very comfortable he's your guy for the next decade. Unfortunately, when the Browns had an early round pick, and even when the Steelers were in desperate need of a quarterback, this is not a deep quarterback draft. So if you can't get Ward, who's not even a guarantee either, I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't have a Hall of Fame career. This could be a nothing draft as far as QBs. This is a weak quarterback draft. So if that's the case, then this is a bad draft to need a quarterback. Next year should be better. Yeah. And that sucks to have to punt a year to get there. But if that's the case, you take best available. You take the unicorn who also can help you win some games now, you figure would flip a game or two. Then you'd have Travis Hunter for next year whenever maybe you go get a quarterback again, or you work a trade like you're saying that works a lot in the NFL these days. You have some picks that if you want to trade back and get another quarterback, then use those picks to work a trade for a veteran quarterback like you're saying. Go ahead and do that. And even if you sign Kirk Cousins, it's not like he has a 4 or 5 year runway for his career. It's still going to be a short-term thing, and he just sucked in Atlanta. So you had the unicorn there. Like, you had the best available player for you was Travis Hunter, and you traded out and you did not take him. That's my problem.
Yeah. Last year, for reference, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy, and Bo Nix. McCarthy would have been the starter in Minnesota. Minnesota's eventually a playoff team under Darnold. Bo Nix and the Broncos did indeed go to the playoffs. Daniels, of course, NFC Championship game. Caleb Williams and the Bears had a better season than I think.
Jury's still out, but he showed some signs.
Yeah. Penix, maybe a reach by Atlanta, as we talked about last year, but quarterback in waiting there. And Drake May now under Mike Vrabel, his second.
I think is a solid QB.
Second year, and then and it's interesting from the Jacksonville.
It's just not a deep draft this year. Just not.
Yeah, exactly. And from the Jacksonville perspective, like, it's funny because the Jags and the Browns are similar in like bad ways at the same time.
Well, they're always there. These teams are always in this top 10 generally.
Browns ownership, Jimmy Haslam's the owner of the Browns, Shad Khan and his family, the owners of the Jags, both have issues with figuring out and hiring coaches. The Browns have gone through more coaches than anybody cares to remember.
Hell, Khan got some issues with AEW as well. The whole management structure and who to hire and who to pay. I think he might need to take a class.
The Jags, of course, infamously hired Urban Meyer, and everybody wondered, man, this is strange. Why? And then by week 7, when he left his team in Cincinnati to go to his bar and feel up a woman that wasn't his wife, and he was gone by the end of the season.
And that wasn't even the half of it. There were rumors that he was abusing players and yelling at players. It wasn't just about, I mean, you're going on the affair.
Was abusing the kicker. Yeah, I went to the sex stuff first. He was abusing the kicker.
Where George's mind is. There was more. Yeah. I think maybe if he just had an affair, he probably would have been coaching longer. Hey, I don't know if it would have been. You can go morality. I don't know if he would have been fired for that. Yes. But yeah, he had a real bad couple months. And then you go to Cleveland, of course, and I'm going to say this despite being, despite knowing the history of sports, the Deshaun Watson decision and that move may be the worst in NFL history, if not sports history. Yeah. You could certainly put it up there with all of that, and that does kill you for years to come. I get all that. The benefit is you still have a future Hall of Famer in Myles Garrett, and you do have some pieces in a potentially winnable situation in your division where you could get a couple wins that maybe you weren't expecting. But again, I don't think it even has to be as complicated as, yes, you need a QB for the future. Sure, that guy is not there. You can't take that guy right now. You still have some pieces. You need more. It's rare you're going to win a championship this year anyway, and the unicorn is there. And best available is the unicorn, Travis Hunter, and you say no. You're attached to it now.
And from the Jacksonville perspective, it's kind of like, all right, let's see if Khan can get this right.
Gladstone, I get taking him if you're Jacksonville. Oh,
yeah, yes.
Oh, yeah.
But like, so whole Gladstone comes in. He's the general manager now. Was with the Rams before. Again, the coaching search was weird, where you had the general manager and the owner appearing on a Zoom, and essentially the coach in waiting guy saying, hey, if I need that general manager gone, and then he gets fired, and then Liam Cohen, I'm staying with Tampa. So there's like some still weird bad blood there that we don't know the full respect of. And then he has the weird Duval press conference introductory, all that jazz. But
I mean, they tried to bring in baseball people to run football. I mean, like, it's been a whole thing.
So new coach, new general manager, and it feels like the last best chance for Trevor Lawrence to kind of prove, not that he's been a bad quarterback, but Mike, to prove
there's a regression though from what it was.
That number, to prove that number one, that he is a top worthy of where he was selected, which was number 1 overall. And who better to do it with than a guy like Travis Hunter, who can pretty much do anything under the sun for you on the offensive side of the ball.
But also, again, Jacksonville has a problem getting people to go to games. Their minority, their loud minority, actually is a great fan base, but they don't have enough of them. And you could even argue whether the NFL should ever have experienced Jacksonville football. You already got multiple Florida teams. You already got Atlanta that's relatively close. Like, people in Jacksonville often are Atlanta fans. It's just bizarre to have an NFL franchise in Jacksonville. And it's also even more bizarre that they had a Super Bowl there at one point. We talked about Green Bay at the top. There's at least history there. Jacksonville is just weird. It seemed unnecessary when you had Tampa Bay and Miami, and then you have Atlanta. Within 500 miles, you have all these other teams you can root for, and then you have one pro team in the biggest league in the world. And Khan's very, very rich and is involved with pro wrestling.
There's the bones.
It just is a weird fit there, and it's a problem for fans. So if you get Travis Hunter there, you're going to bring some interest there. And there's right now they have more interest than even Miami. At least.
There's the bones of a good team there. Travis Etienne.
You got the QB.
I was there, watched the Packers play in Jacksonville last year. Like, there's a good team there. It's just, and they're doing the whole thing. They're renovating the Gator Bowl, the old stadium there finally, which was very bad. So there's a lot of positive energy there. It's just, can you capture it now? New coach, new GM, and a guy like Etienne, and actually make it work. And again, I offer you that the division is for the taking. Houston, very good, and Stroud, amazing.
It's always for the taking. It almost is perpetually for the taking.
That's a very good point. Stroud, very good rookie year 2 years ago. Last year I'm not gonna call it a regression. I'll call it just kind of like reality and the rest of the league catching up to what he did and Houston did. Still works with a playoff appearance. Indianapolis really doesn't have a sense of direction. Will they? Anthony Richardson, you're going to work on him. They shouldn't have. We've talked about 2 years ago. They shouldn't have took him as high as they did to begin with, because he played like 15 games in college, and
now
here we are.
he does, but it's still going to be a rookie playing with a QB. You figure they're a year or two away.
Yeah. Good pick on the on them for the, but it's
no. You feel like if you're looking at 2025, that the Jaguars might actually be poised to be the most intriguing, the most interesting, the most entertaining, and potentially the best team in the division. That's all on the table now for the Jaguars by having the best available player and an athlete like Travis Hunter, George, at receiver and corner, those two positions. It might be hard to do two-way, but he can impact one of them right away. You figure, I mean, this is not like a quarterback that usually takes a minute. This is a guy that can impact things right away. So that was, again, a very risky play to miss, and I think they're going to very much regret it. And when the Jaguars are good, they have a community feel that's very Green Bay-like for the South. Like, their fans do get behind them when they win, and it will likely bring casual fans into that stadium that otherwise wouldn't go. I'm not even sure, George, if they might even get fans in other parts of Florida to drive 2 hours and say, I want to watch Travis Hunter. Yeah, like they might get somebody from Tampa. Yeah, the Bucks are there, but like, let me take a road trip and let me see Travis Hunter.
Couple hours,
wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened without Travis Hunter there. They're not going to do that road trip for what the Jacksonville Jaguars normally bring to the table. Cleveland, maybe, they don't need that for the fan base. They're always going to pack it in. They're an historic market, and Cleveland's a great sports town. It snows as part of the season. Like, they're going to always pack the house, but they still needed him on the field. Like, it's still a risk to pass on a unicorn in general. I mean, we mentioned the Eagles and some late round teams. Are there any other teams that stand out in their draft, either for the better or for the worse, either as a winner or a loser? Because this was a very thin quarterback first round. This is a draft that there were a lot of teams that needed a lot. This is a draft that had one early trade that we're mentioning there with the weirdness of the Browns passing on Hunter, and then didn't have another one for 20-some picks and almost set a record that hadn't been the case since the early 70s of the modern draft. And yet, I do think there are some teams that, at least off their first pick, we're only talking first round here on the HBS, they did okay. And there were some teams that normally swing and miss that I think actually did okay. You mentioned Green Bay, first wide receiver since 2002, and they actually finally get a weapon for Love. No matter what you think of him, he's the guy they're married to, and now you give him a weapon. You've had receivers that have been elite, but they keep on leaving, and now you have somebody you can build around that you at least got a 3 or 4 or 5 year runway with on this deal, and that should help Love. That should elevate him with big plays. That makes sense. People always make fun of the Cowboys and even the Raiders, who normally have horrible drafts, and that's kind of why they're always into mess. But I think the Raiders in particular, by you could maybe argue it's a little bit of a reach for Gentry. Some people think he's too small, but I think him with Pete Carroll is perfect. That's his beast mode too. He totally fits what Pete Carroll wants to do. He's going to give him the rock. He's going to test him. That seems like a perfect marriage between the two of them. And again, Philadelphia, Kansas City, they did very, very well at the end. And I do think the Giants, I'm not fully certain on Jackson Dart, but to get Abdul Carter, who's bust-proof for your defense, and then you get a mobile quarterback who I think is the second best quarterback in the draft, by doing it later, it makes sense. Another Ole Miss guy, like that could not work, but Abdul Carter is at least bust-proof for you.
And you're going to give... Yeah, I think the Giants had the best first round because obviously we already talked about Carter's superlatives. You're going to give Dart the best possible chance to succeed under the crazy, wacky, whatever room develops out of
Neighbors is there. Like, you have
out of Russell Wilson, who has his own goofiness, and then Jameis Winston, who's a whole different level of goofy as well.
Yeah, a different level of goofiness with a lot more interceptions.
Both equally entertaining in their own ways, but. Yeah, it's not, hey, we're drafting him down here and we're going to have an open competition, whatever. No, Russell Wilson is, even they're not going to say it. Russell Wilson's the incumbent starter.
There's not pressure on Dart to start right away, right?
Yeah. So I like that. I'm high on Genty. I'm a big fan of Genty. Some people, running back too high in the round. I think this guy.
Would you have liked him anywhere, though? Were you high enough to like him anywhere? Because I think I like him with the Raiders, but I don't know if I like him anywhere, especially because the running back position in the first round is normally very risky, and the shelf life's not long.
Fits there, right? I could have – Cleveland took Mason Graham, as we talked about. I could have seen the Browns taking him there, but No, I like him with the Raiders. Six. It's not a Bijan Robinson. When Atlanta did Bijan Robinson, which we talked about on this,
It was very, very high at the time.
Congratulations that we're not. I mean, well, we're not talking about the Falcons. The Falcons did trade back late into the first round to take James Pierce, but they gave up a next year's first round pick for it, which I think in retrospect is going to seem like a bit way too much to pay just to get back in the late first round to take a guy that probably might have been there early in the second.
And Penix also looked okay. I mean, they kind of looked like they did the right thing last year because Cousins really regressed and Penix looked okay. So maybe Cousins was a product of
but it was after you had already paid him all that money.
It was bizarre. You paid him all the money and then you draft a QB.
And then the year before that, you take, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, or Kyle Pitts. I always forget who they have at that position, but Bijan Robinson, take him high. I liked Bijan Robinson out of Texas, high 8. I think he went 8th overall. But Genty is the one guy here in a round that was stocked with big skill guy, big players, tight ends, DTs, OTs, etc.
The Raiders need a lot, though. They need a lot, and they took a running back, but they need a lot.
But I think that, and we'll revisit it when we get to August. Like this may be almost like the Commanders, where we're talking about new coach, experienced assistant guy Dan Quinn comes in, right quarterback finally for that franchise with some already experienced guys like a Terry McLaurin, etc., and puts it in not only playoffs but way far and beyond that. Las Vegas been in a weird miry thing ever since John Gruden got fired for being racist. Like that's a franchise has been kind of all over the place. Max Crosby, is he going to leave? Okay. Antonio Pierce might have worked. No, got no quarterbacks. Ownership's weird. Tom Brady's involved, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now pieces that just
I think
more and more these days.
Got a couple more years left too. I think he has a couple years left. He doesn't make mistakes, at least. I think if you give him a beast running back, which is what he was really good with,
but it's the synergy, right? Like we've got to start from everybody.
And they're all Pete Carroll players.
Everybody needs to be on somewhat of a similar page. So I've got Pete Carroll, who's got the pragmatism and the knowledge and the experience at both levels to use a guy like Genty, who would have played with a guy like Genty and Reggie Bush, and also played against guys like Genty out in the Pac-12, and add that to Geno Smith, who he coached and is having a late career renaissance for as many years that he can string together that. And now we put Genty in there and the defense and Max Crosby. Like we're backdoor, shout out backdoor Raiders as the playoff team next year, which sounds ridiculous.
It's not a deep
Raiders as a sneaky playoff
obviously
team.
Kansas City's still there. I still think Herbert and the Chargers can get it done. And obviously Bo Nix and the Broncos were a playoff team, but it's a hard division. It is a hard division, but I think Pete Carroll also, you talk about excitement and getting people to go to games, Pete Carroll being there and the weapons they now have, and the fact that, let's put it this way, whether you like the age of Pete Carroll or you like the hire or not, or even if you believe he was responsible for some of the end of the Seahawks, like some fans do there, because that was kind of a divorce that maybe he's a little bit kind of motivated to kind of show them, no matter what you believe about Pete Carroll, he's won everywhere he's been. It's been quicker turnarounds. Even when he left USC and goes Seattle, and obviously he left there to kind of ditch some scandal, people thought Seattle, that's not going to be where you're going to have great success. And he ends up getting it done, winning a championship there. Should really have had two. And that's why he's a legendary Hall of Fame coach now in both ends.
And I'm going to sound very stereotypical.
He is older, though. It depends on how long he has to go.
One everywhere he's gone. One at SC.
Even the Patriots, when he got fired, they were actually turning the corner a little bit before Belichick.
One at SC, one in Seattle, has done it in both college and pro, which, as we've seen, is incredibly hard for people to do these days. Cliff Kingsbury couldn't do it,
ask Nick Saban. Right.
Nick Saban. It's a hard thing to do, and Pete Carroll's got the right mindset, and now I believe the right players that again, low ceiling to clear in parts of the AFC, and you got the right. I believe they got the right pieces in place, and and then
again, the quarterback class was not deep this year, so I don't mind going into it. It's not like Geno's not 41 like Aaron Rodgers. He's 36, I believe. He has a couple more years likely left. You get into his business, and then you likely are going to have to draft a quarterback next year. If not next year, the year after that. Geno's not going to play forever. He's not a Hall of Famer. But I think for next season, likely 1 or 2 more years, you got enough from Geno. He's not going to lose you games. And then you get enough around him. there's always a team that jumps up 4 or 5 wins every given year, and maybe
Yep.
it's finally the Raiders' turn with Pete Carroll. So I do like the move for them. I don't know if Gentry I would like for everybody, and I do also think the Saquon Barkley success last year with the Eagles is providing a little bit of a false narrative that all of a sudden now the running back position's back and you got to sell the farm for running backs. I still wouldn't give all the money in the world to them. I still wouldn't draft them in the first round on a normal basis unless you get a unicorn like Gentry, because the shelf life's not that long. We'll see how long Saquon Barkley takes it. But Saquon Barkley is a special player that is a legendary and historic Hall of Fame type of player. Would have always likely been this if he wasn't dealing with a mess with New York and was fully healthy. So that's a different type of beast and a different animal than just all running backs. But Gentry maybe could be that guy, and maybe he can bulk up. The only difference of him being beast mode 2 is he's a little smaller than Marshawn Lynch out of college was a beast, like physically.
Yeah.
That is the concern, and why some did not think Gentry was
I mean,
early player. But Louis Riddick, for one, loves Gentry.
Yeah, Genty's got
analysts out there.
Genty's got the physicality in the body, I think, to overcome maybe some of the additional bulk or whatever, and we'll see.
Yeah, it's about the bulk, and it's about the bulk. But again, Marshawn Lynch had that right away. It is a position that you're expected to do it right away because the shelf life's not long. There's not long runway for you, but he certainly can get there. And I also think Pete Carroll is that coach, which is why I like the fit. Hypothetically, say he doesn't bulk up. Here's what Pete Carroll's probably going to do in his mind. Then he's Reggie Bush. We're just going to use him. We're going to use him on the outside. We're going to use him almost as like a running back / receiver. We're going to just not have him go the middle where he's dealing with 3 or 4 tacklers. We're going to put him out in space and have him beat somebody. Hopefully he'll line up with a safety or a corner at some point, get him away from running back. He's fat or a linebacker. He's faster than all of them. And he'll get away from D linemen on the outside more than trying to go through the middle, kind of what Boise State did. So Pete Carroll will figure it out. He's dealt with it before. It's not exactly Marshawn Lynch, despite the gifts that he's throwing up there. But if he doesn't become Marshawn Lynch, then he's Reggie Bush, in college. So I think that can. And Reggie Bush had a solid NFL career. It was not a Hall of Fame career, but he had a solid NFL career. If he could do that, I think it still gives Pete Carroll. I mean, figuring Pete Carroll coaches for 4 or 5 more years, George. If Gentry has a Reggie Bush first 4 or 5 years, that's fine for Pete Carroll. It's not a Hall of Fame player, but it works for Pete Carroll in terms of his years that he has left. So I do like that. Was there any draft pick, though, that you think was just god-awful? I mean, really, I don't think there was there's some controversy, Steelers, Browns. I don't think there was a real bad viral moment of this first round like we've had in recent years with, say, what Atlanta's been doing and what the Raiders and Cowboys and certain teams normally do. I think the teams that normally are providing those viral moments that everyone's confused in the draft, they didn't really do that this year. There's some controversy, but this did not feel like there's a major loser of the first round just yet. It could happen later on in the draft, of course.
Correct. Yeah. We mentioned Atlanta trading back in and giving up a first next year just to get back in at 26.
Yeah.
Or get in at move up to 26 and take James Pierce. You mentioned Genty. Only one of the running back taken, Omarion Hampton, went to the Chargers at 22. 4 wide receivers, and again, not bust or bad or whatever, but I'll dwell here for a second. Obviously, Travis Hunter. We mentioned Matthew Golden to the Packers was the last wide receiver in the first round. Emeka Egbuka to Ohio State, and Teteroa
Some
McMillan.
thought he was a reach. Some thought that was a reach a little bit.
Egbuka?
Yeah. No, that was on the broadcast. The whole panelist, Mike Greenberg for one, thought that was a reach a little bit.
Yeah. I think McMillan at 8 was a reach, and it's because. Right. So dude is
that was the second Big 12 player, speaking of the Big 12. And they got 2 players on average teams, and Arizona was really bad. But McMillan, I did cover a game directly with him. He is a presence out there, whether they're good or bad. So I like him as a prospect. I don't know if I think that's as much of a reach because I think he's semi-bust proof. But I get the spot being higher than what people thought.
Yeah, spot higher than he thought. It's basically, he what, I read 4.6 40. So he's a bigger dude. Yeah. He's not going to outrun people blazing whatever speed.
He didn't at Arizona either, though.
Exactly. You got to count on him that he's got to be a 50-50 ball guy, get up and win battles over cornerbacks. So In a good way, it helps Bryce Young, which I'm not sure that's going to work out in Carolina just based
No,
on.
but they needed to do this to help
But they
him.
needed to do it just to give it a look-see
Yeah.
here. But I think David Tepper, who's the owner, and his whims are going to be
No,
a
I don't
little
like
weird.
Bryce Young
So
either.
yeah, if I had like one negative, it would be there for McMillan to go that high. Tampa Bay is like probably maybe underrated number 2 behind the Giants for me because.
Oh, I was going to say there's some that think they were maybe one of the underrated losers just because they brought another receiver in for Baker Mayfield, and they do need defensive help.
So they do need help elsewhere, yes. I think they're probably hedging here if Chris Godwin's not back with the team.
That was brought up. If you think
Godwin
he's not
his,
back, you're replacing him,
toward
basically.
the Achilles and everything. And so Mike Evans is on a
If he's
trajectory.
back, you got too much then.
If Godwin's back, then yes, maybe you have too much of a stable. But obviously, Mike Evans is going to the Hall of Fame. Baker did amazing things last year. They looked like they've moved on nicely from winning a Super Bowl under Tom Brady to whatever this incarnation of the Bucs is now.
People thought they would suck for years. Right?
Yeah, it's been a nice bridge or whatever you want to call this era of Bucs football. And I think Ibuka is a good fit to that. And Ibuka gets lost in the shuffle here. Covered, of course, Big Ten and some of Ohio State's games. Remember that this guy played with Chris Olave, with Jackson Smith, and
you're going to get lost at Ohio State.
and still got his at times during the Marvin Harrison Jr. And now it's so Marvin, Arizona, Smith and Jigba's in Seattle, Olave in New Orleans still, I believe. And this guy with a myriad of quarterbacks at Ohio State, including Will Howard, who may go in this draft. And Ibuka was able to hold his own and dominate and kind of get his little chance to shine here in how special that he gets something the other guys didn't, which is a national championship with the Buckeyes. So I think that's a good pick there in Tampa where he can develop under a Hall of Famer like Mike Evans. And if Chris Godwin is unable to return, which I think is part of the hedge here, I think it's going to be a really good pick for Tampa.
They have to know that Godwin's not going to return. It does look like they're kind of replacing him. They do have later picks. They are going to fix the defense, I assume, at that point. There were more defensive players taken in this first round than last year, certainly in the early picks, that maybe made sense for them. I made the joke at the time that they're just trying to throw points on the board and kind of play arena football and not worry about the defense. but George, as much as to say that in this era, that could at least work maybe to get in the playoffs. Yeah. That's not an impossible thing to win some games doing that way. They have been a fun team to watch. If Godwin is not able to be close to what he was, and as much as on paper, you have Godwin and Evans on the roster. If Godwin can come back, and then Evans is getting older, he's a Hall of Fame receiver. I think he's one of the most underrated of the last 10 years. He did it with Tom Brady, the GOAT, and he's now elevating Baker Mayfield. He's the constant during that whole period. He's also getting older. He can't do this forever. So getting him some younger help is a big deal, and Baker Mayfield still has years left in his career for sure. They need defense. They know they need defense. I don't hate it, but there are some that do question it. There's not many losers of this first round just yet, depending on what you think of the QBs, but that is one to bring up. And one more player that I do want to bring up before we kind of wrap up this Howitzer and Buzzsaw first round recap here on this Friday morning. So Friday morning quarterbacking of the maybe debates from the first round is a player that I also, kind of covered a little bit here, certainly covered him in the CFP. And this is a player that gained a lot of stardom last year and was able to ascend when he finally got the opportunity, and that's Tyler Warren at Penn State. A legendary tight end career, certainly season at Penn State in college football meant a lot. There are some that think he should have been a contender and really maybe should even have won the Heisman. It was a big deal of what Penn State did. He did not end up being the first tight end taken in this draft, which really surprised many. And he even slid a little bit, and I will pull the curtain back, that the people in charge of our graphic department, who were well aware there were going to be Penn State players ready and had several of these graphics ready, and there were some they were making on the fly, of course. They had multiple for Tyler Warren, and then all of those got scrapped, and he eventually was taken. But that feels like that, at least for him, he might have in the back of his mind, okay, it's still a good spot, a good situation, little slight to me a little bit. And it's a question, if he becomes a great tight end in the NFL, then why do you think, George, that he slid a little bit after the star power he put up and the success he had in college, because that's an underrated surprise. I know Penn State people were very shocked and felt it was disrespectful that he was not that top tight end.
A lot of in listening to some of the reports leading up to the week, like a lot of people, it was basically a coin flip between him and another Big Ten guy, Colston Loveland out of Michigan, who ends up going to the Bears off the board. And then you could argue the Bears already have Cole Kmet. Why they pick another tight end? So maybe,
but if they're going to, you could argue Tyler Warren would fit that. I mean, culture, style of play, like why not take Tyler Warren then? I wonder what it was with Tyler.
I think Warren gives you Loveland bigger for blocking purposes. I guess if you're the Bears and you want more of that on the line as
they weren't the only team to pass him though. They weren't the only team to pass on him. It wasn't just the Bears.
Yeah, but if I'm looking at the teams above, number 14 in Indianapolis, Dallas, Miami, but Miami's got a whole bunch of issues all over the place.
Well, why not Miami? They got a whole bunch of issues. Take best available. Do you think he maybe was?
San Francisco has Kittle and doesn't need him. Maybe New Orleans.
Kittle's getting old, man. I mean, how much longer is Kittle going to go?
But I'm not upset with.
What about the Saints?
As I'm looking at New Orleans there, but they go offensive tackle to protect the quarterback they don't have currently.
I even will say maybe my last point on the Shedeur debate. Obviously I didn't think he was a first round pick. I don't mind the Steelers passing on him. I don't.
New Orleans might have been another spot.
But I actually will say 100% the best possible landing spot in reason of where he could still likely go and could have maybe gone in the first round, but that would have been too high, would have been the Saints. You put him in a dome. That is the best recipe for him, not these cold weather climates where there's going to be snow.
And a new coach and building something.
And the pressure wouldn't be there right away.
Correct.
With the Steelers, he would have had to immediately do the Daniels thing and get him in the playoffs. With the Saints, he can kind of build it up. A comp for him is very similar to Drew Brees, even though he's taller. So I think that the Saints getting him at some point could really work out for him. That's just a team to throw out there that I think would be a fit for him to get something out of him. But I think the Saints and Tyler Warren, if that's too high for a QB and you don't like Sanders enough in the first round, I think that makes sense. I mean, I would have done that if I were them. They didn't.
I think Tyler Warren does more for you at that position than Colston Loveland does. I think his versatility, using him in the backfield.
So then you agree?
Yes. Penn State lines him up in the backfield, and then he goes off for like a 30-yard touchdown. It's like, what the hell? There are things that he did in an offense that can easily be translated over to the NFL and be.
So you think he translates? Because that's the debate on if he translates.
I think he translates.
A lot of college stars that are a little bit tweeners, they don't always translate.
His athleticism and ability and running and catching the ball and not just from receiving, but also like a pseudo running back. The athleticism 100% translates. I go back to kind of what I said about Anthony Richardson. I don't know what the Colts are doing. I don't know what Chris Ballard and the Colts are, and Shane Steichen and the Colts are doing here. And it's your quarterback. I don't know if Tyler Warren works in an offense with Anthony Rich. So that's weird from that.
Well, Richardson doesn't even guarantee to be the starter.
Exactly. Yeah. Colts historically, Dallas Clark, known as kind of a tight end franchise, but Dallas Clark played with a very prototypical pocket quarterback like Peyton Manning. And I wish Tyler Warren well. I think he might have been I think his athleticism translates. I think he might have been a better fit with another team, i.e. like a New Orleans or somebody else along the line.
And this is funny. I'm not sold on Richardson at all. However, you could argue, people may not want to hear this, you could argue that Tyler Warren fits better with Daniel Jones. Like maybe if you're Tyler Warren, you'd rather have Daniel Jones win that job. They're supposed to be in a competition in the offseason in the camp.
That makes sense.
Now, I'm not saying Daniel Jones is this perennial Pro Bowler. Obviously, that was a reach for the Giants. That didn't work. But he fits more of getting it to Tyler Warren, letting him go. He fits more of that style. Richardson gives you more of a mobile quarterback. Maybe his mind isn't right, though, but more of a mobile quarterback. And maybe that'll give Tyler Warren time if Richardson is mobile. But if what you're saying is correct, then Daniel Jones would fit more with Tyler Warren, and it could go either way. But in all reality, George, maybe they're thinking, as we said, the theme is the quarterback class was not deep. Maybe you take best available. He did slide to them a little bit, and then you worry about the quarterback next year if you don't like Jones or Richardson still.
That will put a nice bow on this edition of the Howitzer and Buzzsaw Show. A reminder to find us wherever you get your podcasts. Search Howitzer or Howitzer Buzzsaw in your favorite podcast app, including Spotify, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and more. Just search us there, download, subscribe. Also, a shout out, as always, to Hyphen Podcast Group, Kellen B. Conley, whose music you hear right here each and every time on the HBS. Part of the Hyphen Podcast Group, a Morgantown, West Virginia-based podcast collective. Hyphen Podcast Group online and on social.
Yeah, even saw Kellen joined us here on the live here for this Friday morning first round recap.
Shout out to the Raiders. We like the Raiders. We like the moves.
I do. I'm rooting for the Raiders. I kind of want the Raiders to be good. But you can find the HBS, of course, on social media at Howitzer Buzzsaw on social, at Gerbo3, at myself, at Mike Osti 11. You can find us everywhere you get your podcasts. And if you're not able to find us, you're just not trying hard enough. That's a fact.
This has been another edition of the Howitzer and Buzzsaw Show, where we conquer pre-draft grades, trading back, and sports radio.
Post-draft analysis would fit there as well. One day at a time.